Good evening. Welcome to Yin and Yang, episode 3. Boy, this time has gone quick. And I'm Jacob Christner, normally the pundit's pundit, but not tonight. This show, and this one is a little different, as I am not, as some people know I do mostly sports, but this one is a lot different. It's mostly films. It's mostly debate about acting, about TV, about everything, the little thing, even politics. So I go a little bit different. And this is my partner for the night on Thursday nights and every night. On that part there, TJ Sanson. And by the way, a movie partner also.
Yes. Thank you. Thanks for tuning in. Glad to be here always.
Oh, yeah. And by the way, one of the things this we can do before we get to our topics tonight, I believe we can be able to speak a little more on what we're going at right now, where we're going with the movie, Awakening.
Yes, indeed. We are gearing up to shoot a short promo video. That's basically the first 6 or 7 pages of the movie, which kind of is a good, it gets to the heart of the matter pretty quickly, and you see it, but we're because it's sort of a trailer promo. After a certain scene happens, then we're just gonna create a little bit of content that's just designed specifically for the promo, which won't actually end up in the final movie, and of course, because it's a promo, this is our desire to get something out there that is going to bring in some money that we can even upgrade the quality of that even. So I mean, right now we've just got maybe an apartment to shoot in, and we've got a great house found.
Oh, about the house.
The house is called the Wynn Russell House, and they have graciously allowing us to film part of this, in front of it. It's an old house built in 1826. If you Google it, you find out all kinds of information about it online. It's just a wonderful kind of a hidden gem, historic landmark, and that is going to be taking place not this weekend, but next. So I'm in prep mode right now. I've got some stuff I'm going to gather up this weekend. I need to go out there to the house again, which I will, so I don't want to bore anybody with all of that, but yes, we're very excited, and I'm very excited, and looking forward to actually creating something from this. So,
well, I can say this to everybody. I've read this script. Yeah. And I've read it all the way through, and we've read it together, and it is really well done. Unlike most of the horror films, and I am not a horror flick guy, I will admit that, but unlike most of those, this one's a little different. This one's not going to be blood and gore and guts, and it's not, it's not useless. There's got a story to it. If anybody's ever seen The Changeling from 1980, George C. Scott, if anybody's ever seen it, it's in that vein.
Absolutely. It's more of a mystery that surrounds a small town and a woman who takes up residence in a house that is familiar to her somehow. She can't quite figure it out. She's had, mental health issues her whole life. And there's a little bit of that thrown in, like, the question of, legitimate mental issues regarding, or just a person who happens to be different. This explores some issues, I think, not only that are happening in modern society, but that have kind of happened throughout history. And as it turns out, I will give a small spoiler. There is a woman character in the past who is a ghost in this house. And the ghost is haunting this house for a reason. She was tried and executed for witchcraft, which a lot of women were in some couple or so years ago. And for no other reason than just there was a vendetta against them. They were different, odd. Maybe they had, maybe they were like, natural herbs and medicine type people, or maybe maybe a woman was the other woman, and somebody got the idea that maybe she needs to be gotten rid of. It was just pick your reason, and it was so easy to, get somebody for that witchcraft if there was something, particularly odd or different about them.
Yeah. It's like one of the things is that we have a lot more to be able to talk about. We're going to talk about it in the weeks ahead. But right now, let's get to our topics. And these 4 topics are going to be really interesting tonight because 3 of them are going to be within the film industry, our actors, our everything. But one is the third one will be as a what if, but I'll bring it to you at a time. Our first one tonight, inflation woes hitting. You said this article to me the other day, actually. Inflation woes hitting indie productions hard. Now, one of the biggest things, this hit a lot of stuff hard. Like, and it's just around the world. For instance, I was talking to somebody today. They were from Ghana. It's like 40% inflation. It's Nigeria's near 100%. So Mexico's like 14%, and that's low. We're at about 9 to 10, probably 12 for real. You know, basically on something like that. And then there are other different countries. The average is about around the world's around 30 some odd percent. So
Real.
Yeah, and it's like I said, Nigeria is like 100%, so it's unreal right now. So it's like, but so where it's affecting is us, like we're in the movie industry, and you have to. One of the things to be able to understand is there's more than just a script, more than just a play. It's like there's so much to this.
My God, yes.
And everything costs. And just tell the people, for instance, to tell the people that are watching right now, they may or may not understand. Or see, we're going to be getting a couple of different type of viewers. We're going to be getting the ones that maybe have a dream of being in the films, the ones that are already in there and have an understanding, or just people that have a dream, or just people that just have an interest in this stuff. They're maybe movie buffs, any of that kind of deal. So for anybody that doesn't quite know, tell them the kind of costs that we have that incur when we get onto a set.
Well, on average, a film production crew, which consists of camera, light, and audio, if they're their own company, okay, if they're own independent, like they're freelancers or contractors, anywhere from $1,000 to $1,500 per day for this service. And you get it all though. You get the the camera, audio equipment, lights. And then there's a hodgepodge. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff you can, I won't bore you with all the ins and outs of it, but that's on average.
Yeah.
You have location costs. If you are in a soundstage warehouse, there's, so much per day you have to pay.
Yeah.
And it could be anywhere, Atlanta is cheap compared to, for example, Los Angeles.
LA, New York. Yeah.
Yes, those markets.
And just imagine Toronto and Vancouver with Canadian.
Well, I understand that Canada expenses were less than LA. So,
but what would it be now? Because remember, everything's in inflation, is what I'm saying.
I haven't researched Canada, but I do know what it costs here. Okay, and we're talking about the lower end of costs. Even just an office, to rent an office, $125 a day.
Yeah.
Some of them are like $80 an hour, which an hour of 8-hour day. How much is that? $640 a day.
Yeah.
Just to say an office rental.
Yep.
So it adds up. I mean, you just sit down and figure out how many days would you need to film in an office? How many days would you need to film in, say, a school, like an old abandoned school, a warehouse? Oh my gosh. I've talked to some people that's $800 a day.
Yeah.
So then you have those costs. And if you have actors, assuming you're going to have some actors, if you're not paying them, they're volunteering their time and they just want credit, that's one thing. If you're under what's known as a SAG ultra low budget contract, that's $125 a day. If they're SAG actors, they must have a contract. So a lot of SAG actors don't agree to work for free. I mean, they can't. Or if they get, that could potentially get in some trouble. You could pay potentially a non-SAG actor $75 a day if they're agreeable to it. Food, you have to feed them during the day, so there's meals to consider.
Yeah.
Good God, you could rack up, anywhere between $5,000 and $10,000 easily.
Yeah.
And that's for a small production, okay, not for anything on a grand scale.
And just remember all of these things, like we're talking, everybody, you bring up all these costs, then you hear, let's just bring up the grand scale type of movies for a second. People would think, oh, it's a $300 million movie, whatever, or just whatever. It's like right now they're talking about The Woman King, with Viola Davis, talking about her. She was $50 million. Yeah. There's $50 million. There's easily $50 million more in marketing. So that's 100, and then you got to make that back in the. See, the thing is, you're making it back in the theater, and now they're streaming, and now there's all that kind of stuff. So it's like the marketing comes into the play on something like these. It's not just the 50 million. Your marketing costs, come into that. So then that can double it, because I know darn good and well everybody's going to want that because right now it's at $19 million. It made $19 million over the last weekend. The start.
Yeah.
So they're trying to continue. They're trying to see if it'll keep on going or build. It's like even if the thing costs 50 and makes 50, it's lost money because of the marketing. They don't incur the expenses on that.
Well, and yeah, exactly, and that's grand scale, and independent filmmakers that have been hit hard by this inflation.
Yeah.
Many of them are the day labor type workers like me. I mean, we're not full time in the business. That is not our bread and butter. It is something we're doing either as a hobby to get ourselves into the door. So we're having to come up with the money on our own, which is either through crowdfunding, grants, contests, money, whatever, rich relatives, you got them. Or just things. And it's just a little bit of everything. And you just have to explore every angle and just throw everything in the pot that you can.
I remember the movie I was on, one of the very first ones. They were, and I'm not going to say the movie because it was one of my first I was on, but they gave a story, and I wasn't on that part, but they used to give a story during the break, and he was on the movie, and they were down to their last part of their film because they've shot it on film, and they were down to the last piece, basically, the last few minutes, and they didn't have any more. They didn't have the budget for any more film. So this is down to the last thing, and it was a documentary, not documentary. It was a monologue. The character had a monologue, and he was a couple, just basically a couple pages. And it's one of those, you talk about pressure. If you mess up, you can't go back, and this ain't digital. You can't go back. So it's like, and he got it, and he finished it up. He got it, and he did it right. So it was like, but you talk about the pressure. Those are the little things. It's like there wouldn't even be that much pressure with digital because you can go back and rewind. Go back and redo it, reset it up, and we can get that. There's that case. Imagine having full film.
You can delete scenes.
Yeah.
You can delete the content, which will free up your memory on the memory card. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, but you can imagine film and you're almost out of it.
Yeah. I know. It's a different world. I mean, it's like digital photography as opposed to the paper chemically created kind. I mean, you only have so much material and there's less margin for error.
Well, I was going to ask you this: someone who's shooting with the camera you just got yourself a camera about a couple weeks ago. I was going to ask you this: if you got yourself a chance, would you want to shoot on film?
But very experimentally at first. The cost. I just want to blow tons and tons of rolls and rolls of film on something rather than, start small. I'd take film and I'd do some little abstract thing, maybe
it would almost
maybe myself, just set the camera and do myself doing some little thing. I don't know. I wouldn't waste the material.
Or there'd have to be such few lines of dialogue. It's like that. You wouldn't be easy lines, easy dialogue. So you wouldn't be a waste.
Even then, you got to make sure your lighting is good.
Yep.
There's this. You still have to test it.
Yep.
You got to look at it and film it and what it comes up. That's a different animal, and I would want some training. I'd want some training before I even touch actual physical reels with the film.
Yes. Yeah. So
going back to art school, I learned how to do photography on 35 millimeter camera. Okay. The little real Fuji film. You had to roll it in the little thing and then, click, click, click. And then you had to go into a dark room, literally with the red light on and take the thing out because you couldn't expose it to light. Then you had to put it in these canisters.
Yeah.
So that's how I learned photography.
Well, people, I'm just saying though, it's so hilarious. People, the biggest thing about it was people used to see that. You know what show was big was showing that, don't you? Magnum PI.
Huh.
Magnum, yeah. Magnum used to, because the thing about it was he was one of the private detectives that acted like an actual detective because he had camera. He'd use Higgins's darkroom, which it would drive Higgins nuts. It would which that was their whole little comedy thing. And
Well,
it's like he used the darkroom a ton.
Well, there was several. I mean, I've been watching. You know me, an independent horror. There's a whole genre of Asian horror that's called Tartan Asian Extreme, and it was a whole series that was I don't know if it was distribution or whatever, but it's the nature of this of these horror films, and they're all done in either Japan, Korea, Vietnam.
I bet you we could get the one guy that we know that we personally know, you know, Mr. Horror Flick guy himself. I bet we can get him on. He'd know.
Sure. Well, I'm telling you, I've seen some of those horror movies involve one of them is called Shutter, and it involves a photographer that has ghost images show up in the film, and the negatives too. And so, but he has to develop them. And so there was this, lots of scenes in dark rooms developing, actual paper, from chemically created photographs.
Yeah.
So that was just in the early 2000s. So that wasn't that long ago.
Yeah.
I mean, digital cameras were there, not the way they are now, but it was there. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. And it's like, no, but I'm thinking that you can't. I love when my head spins. Boy, you talking about those old school, all those old school horror films, which I'll never care. But you talking about those, we got the perfect first guest, I think. I really do. Sure. You know what I'm talking about.
Of course. I do.
Well, we'll surprise the audience for that on that part. I'll give them a call this week. So I'm going to do that because you two, I won't be saying much when you two go at it with horror films. The biggest thing about the indies, though, going back to the indies, where do you think the future lies right now? Do you think it gets better for indies as far as cost? Do you think it stays expensive?
That's going to depend on the innovations of the filmmakers. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm looking at, for example, in the Atlanta Film Festival screenings, which I'm watching some of these short films from, all over the world. I couldn't tell you what these cost. I have no clue because Canada, Saudi Arabia, somewhere over in the middle, Indonesia, they're different countries who have, different rates of inflation, obviously, and different production costs. But I would guess any one of these, if they were U.S. productions, anywhere in the van between, 20 and 30,000 a piece, just from the production quality. Okay. Mm-hmm. And that's actually rather cheap.
Right.
I have made a short film on less than $1,000.
What was that, Annalise?
Annalise, a love story. But it depends on the innovation of the filmmaker.
Yeah.
Okay? George Lucas didn't have a pot to piss in when he made Star Wars. Okay. I mean, he probably had what was the basic low budget cost of the day, but he made a masterpiece out of it. Okay. Yeah. With his head, his heart, and his skills. All right. So just because you got a lot of money doesn't mean you're going to have a good product.
Well, remember Steven Spielberg with Duel, 1972. You know that movie?
I've never seen it.
Well, have you heard of it?
Probably at some point.
It was a highway. It was a 1970 or late 60s car. It was Dennis Weaver. And basically the whole thing of the movie is he cut off a trucker, pissed him off, and the trucker chased him for hundreds of miles. It was a real horror. Real. I mean, there was not a whole lot of dialogue. It was just a lot of, you see the sweat. Yeah, it's like and remember Dennis Weaver was McCloud, so he's the tough guy. But he just really was just scared half to death. This truck would just look scary.
Sounds like something Stephen King would write.
No, it was Steven Spielberg though, but yeah, it's like
sounds like a Stephen King novel.
Yeah. Oh, it was a real good movie actually. So it was pretty good. Now we're gonna seg. I'm gonna seg into the next thing, but I want to ask you one more question. But I know what you had said about experimental. Everything, because we watch the older movies too. What do your preference? You like digital or you like film?
It's a medium. That's like saying, do I like, digital art or fine art? It just depends on what you do with it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's certain limitations to both.
Yeah.
Right? There are advantages to both.
Yep.
When you're dealing with a physical object, which is a film strip, which is film, it's a thing.
Yeah.
Or you're dealing with digital, which is memory, it's storage information. Okay. You can make a solid object like a print or something from it, but it's not tangible. You can't hold it. It's like, typing on the keyboard with a mouse or using a pen. I can't say that I prefer one over the other because they both have qualities that are advantageous.
Sure.
Now, you know me, I'm a traditional artist. I draw and paint. I get on the floor with my pencils and I'm, just to me that's just it's a labor of love, and it's a craft and a skill I've developed over the years, many years ago, and still have. To me, there's nothing like a good old-fashioned pencil. But there's
you're doing RBG right now,
and
you're doing RBG right now. Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Yeah. In fact, I was working on it yesterday.
Yeah.
It's such a tedious, thing that I'm doing right now. But you got to love the process. You got to be able to, lose yourself in it. It's kind of relaxing to me, actually. But yet again, there are others that will actually paint with a program on an iPad. And I forget the name of it right now. I know I know in my mind what it is, but you can actually use your fingers and kind of create brush strokes, broad ones, thin ones, color. You use the tools on that on the desktop or the I think it's an iPad. I'm rambling. I sound like I'm rambling, but it's what it is. So, but you know what? You have a product that looks good.
Yeah. So
I mean, it just depends on what you want.
Absolutely. And this will go to our next debate. I wanted to seg into our next debate. It's like this is going to be a 50-50 to a lot of people, and I don't think it even depends on age, gray hairs, or otherwise. You know what I'm saying? I don't think it's good. I don't think it's going to depend on anything like that. Streaming with binge watching or weekly appointment television. Now, I bring these because we are nearly finished with West Wing. Mm-hmm. We're probably 7-8 episodes left. Going to lose Leo McGarry. Going to lose, all. It's all. We've gone through a couple of years up through this. You know what I'm saying? Just through our times, that stuff, and it's like you and I know this as well as anything else. It ended the perfect time. We're getting to the point where we know that another season probably would have been bad.
Right.
It's like we're seeing the great excitement of the rest of the election, but another year would have probably been redundancy. It would have been nice to see. It would have been nice to see. Spoiler alert, of course, but the people that don't know it, Vinnick and Santos worked together for a year, maybe. It would have been nice, but being different parties. But it might have been a little different, but it ended the perfect time. But now that we see this, we're in binge watching a couple episodes at a time. What do you expect? What do you like the best?
Well, you can certainly become addicted. Okay. And I was doing that for some shows. I did that with a long-running TV series called Supernatural, and that you and I will talk about that another time. There's something I want to talk about that show, and I loved it. I fell in love with the characters. Two brothers, most people know them, Sam and Dean Winchester. They were this supernatural, paranormal hunter investigator. Not just investigators; they hunted demons, evil things.
15 years worth.
Yes, and they all agreed it was time to end it, which, the fans were just, ah! But, all three of the main actors in that agreed it was, as heartbreaking as it was time for them all to move on. It had run its course. And like certain things, like you were saying, any more seasons, it would have been bad. It was kind of good, bad anyway. It was kind of that cheesy bad that it was just sort of enjoyable, just to a specific group of people, the fans. But any other season, it really would have brought the quality down, I think. First of all, the three actors were getting older. and I had all of them had families, you know, and all that. And so they were kind of these swashbuckling little, you know, younger men when they first started, you know, that the little pops would just over, and now they were dad, you know, they're the age of dads, you know, and it kind of done, you know, it didn't have the same, you know, and the initial fans had aged 15 years. So if you were 15 when you started it, you were 30, you know, by the end, the show's end. And it's like, you know, that's half their lives.
Yeah.
You know? So it was good, but I binged watched that show because some years back, I had a surgical procedure, which had me out of commission for weeks. Okay. Sure. For 2 weeks, I could do nothing really. And even longer than that was a little bit more of a, you know, recuperative period. And I got.
Did you watch all 15 years in those 2 days?
No, dear God, no. I would have died. I think I got through 15 years, 15 seasons, and just over a year.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Because even after a while, it was getting to me, you know, and you can get tired of it, you know, you can get tired of it. You get disgusted with it, or you just kind of you know, breezing through through episodes and not really taking it in, where there's the advantage of having it once a week is you look forward to it. Okay. You had that time like, oh, Thursday night, that's my blah, blah show. Or, you know, oh man, Saturday night, 10 o'clock, gotta have this one, you know. And families used to do that, you know, when they used to watch shows together as a family. And then, of course, things got where shows got a little bit more mature and a little more intense for younger kids. Yeah. And then, you know, more and more channels started coming into play, and more shows. Audiences broadened, so there was demographics instead of just the whole family. Then there was stuff oriented to seniors, oriented to middle-aged adults, and oriented to kids and young adults.
Mm-hmm. And
so you had all those different markets. Yeah. But then you had the family television set, which okay. Now, if you were kids growing up during this era, Saturday night's my show, you know, and then Friday night's my show, and then, you know, and you could see kids fighting over this. So then parents had no choice but to either get a kids' TV, so they could, then the parents could have the TV for their. So, you know, you see how things expanded with streaming. You've got phones, you've got computers,
yeah,
you've got TVs.
Yep.
Oh yeah. You know, this generation does not know what it means to have to share the TV, you know, with brothers or sisters or parents are like, nope, this is my football night. You kids go off. You kids go off. You know,
here's what's funny. Here's what's funny about that. You know me with sports. Here's what's so funny. My dad was sports with me. He remembered people from his day, but he was mostly his work, his business. So he's the one asking me questions, even at 6 years old, about who this was, what this was. He was not a sport. If I wasn't home and he's watching sports, you probably seen him sleep in front of the TV. It just, you know, he'd get bored of it, especially baseball. But it's like, that was the thing. It's like he would watch a lot of the stuff. He watched public television a ton. We didn't have cable. So he was watching Rumpole of the Bailey. He was watching Rumpole of the Bailey. He was watching, guess what? Wooster and Jeeves.
Oh my God, Jeeves and Wooster, awesome.
Jeeves and Wooster. Yeah, he was a monster fan of Hugh Laurie on that. Huge.
Oh my God, he missed out on House.
Yeah, I know.
He missed out on House big time.
Yeah, he would have loved him. Oh yeah, and it's like, oh yeah, Wooster and Jeeves and Wooster. Yeah, he would have. Oh yeah, he loved that. Rumpole of the Bailey. He liked. We both watched. Are you served? Are you being served? Yeah.
Oh God, yeah, those British comedies.
Oh yeah,
BBC. That was BBC. So
yeah, but it was on our public televisions. Yes. He was big into those types and everything. And then this was the thing. Growing up, sports was, it's like we got it on Sundays. He knew I loved it. But once the game was over, it was like, okay, go mow, go rake leaves, go shovel, whatever. And it was like, that is where my how I take losing and winning. It's gone after about 5 minutes. I don't take a week where I want to jump out of a window. It's like because of him. It was like it's like it was the same time. It would shock you. He was a construction man, everything like that. But then he would watch these classics on PBS, and he'd watch a ton of PBS. It'd be news. It'd be politics.
He had good taste, that's for sure. He had good taste.
Oh yeah.
He wasn't into dumb shit. I wonder what he would think of the dumb shit that's out there now.
Oh God. Well, see, because we didn't have cable.
Reality television.
Yeah. No. See, the thing was, he's gone by 2010. So the thing about it, what he would do is he would rent CD tapes on books on tape or CD, and then he would just turn the TV off instead of flipping around, and then listen to books on CD.
Well, that's good. I mean, that's just keeping your mind active. And me and my books, I'd rather hold a book in my hand. That's. Yeah. I don't even want to read it on a tablet. I couldn't get into that.
So getting on back to the subject. Now here was the thing that was probably the strength of appointment television. I'll say the name Gunsmoke. It was from 1955 to 1975, 20 years. And here's the thing: you get Matt Dillon, you get James Arness. You get from a guy who's 6 foot. He's 6'7" the whole way, mind you. But you get a 6'7" guy, and he's tall and he's really handsome. And he's young, youthful looking. He's John Wayne's best buddy, all that stuff. 1975, his knees are gone. He walks like it.
Yeah.
He is beaten up. He's still doing his own. Stunts. So he is walking slower. You can just tell it's harder for him to get on horses, and it's all that. But see, in appointment television, in those times, those 20 years that people watched, he just got older with you. You didn't.
Well, of course.
Yeah, he got older with you, so you don't tell the difference. But if you're watching, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's the point I was making about Supernatural.
Yeah.
Because there's so much of those characters aged, but they were still doing the same shit they were doing when they were, 23 and 24, and there they were at 37, 38, and realistically in their own lives, the two actors, the two leads, were married with kids, and
yeah.
Their audience had matured and probably had become married and, careers and kids and whatever. And, it's just so funny, when your audience ages with you, they either with you for the whole journey or they are only with you for a couple of years and then they're done. It's like, I've had enough, yeah. Obviously this Gunsmoke, it wouldn't be around for 20 years if it didn't have its audience.
Oh, absolutely. And like I said,
and it must have had a younger audience coming in because they couldn't sustain on just the older.
Right. And it's like, and you're right. And it's like the biggest thing about Gunsmoke was it's like what I was saying, like when it was appointment television, there's obviously no streaming back in the 50s and 70s. It's like when they'd have that, but you don't tell someone's getting older when they're getting older with you. You tell when they're getting older when you have 20 seasons on streaming. And you see all these, and you see
season 1, and watch.
Yeah.
I was doing that with ER. I looked at the younger doctor, Noah Wild. Good Lord, he was what 23 when he started that show, such a baby face, and he was kind of, by the end of the show, he was like the lead. He was a star.
Yeah.
By the season that he left at a certain point, but he was already a pro. And everything. In that first season, he was just, and so yeah, it's the same thing. I mean, your characters obviously can't stay the same because you're not going to stay the same as an actor.
And it's like I can't watch Entourage. I used to watch Entourage with my brother.
What's better, binge watching, streaming, or serial? Broadcast time.
Yeah,
TV.
Yeah. The appointment television. Yeah.
Oh God. The fun part, also the most inconvenient part, which is what networks and production companies found out very quickly, is that when the VCR came on, people could program them to tape a show on a certain night, and they can go off and do something. And the VCRs went through the roof. They were expensive as shit in the 70s. Oh my God, they were like $700-800 in the 70s. By the end of the 80s, you could get one for $50.
Yep.
That played tapes and recorded and all that. And they even had the kind that had 2 slots. So you could tape one, record another, you know, 2 different.
Yep.
It was just so much advancement in technology at that time. And then it was like, people weren't tuning in. They were recording it. You didn't have to have the TV on to record it from the channel. All you had to do is have it on that channel, and the VCR would program into that channel. You had to program the channels into the VCR. So they didn't have to stay home and watch.
Sure.
They could record the show, but be off doing something else.
Oh, TV. Oh, TV companies. I mean, the television companies could not stand it.
Of course they couldn't.
Because they're afraid you're not going to watch live.
Sponsorship is based on broadcast and how many TVs it's going through across, you know, the nation.
Yeah, and then you can fast forward.
The sponsors too. Oh my God!
And you can fast forward through ads.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing, like I said, my biggest deal is I think streaming helped me. You know what I'm saying? Streaming helped me out for me growing up, and I'll explain. When you watch a show, as long as you may, of any type, you're watching it week by week. They're aging with you, so you can't tell. But when I watched during some of the COVID, even though I didn't really lock down, I watched TV shows. I also watched a lot of the sports that I watched from like '84 on when it started. I watched those things. When you see, you don't notice your age from the 80s. It's it's laugh. The ads are like Commodore 64. You know, it's like, yeah, we already know it's old. It's like going back to 1953. You know, we already know. But when you're moving up to like 2008 and you see the first iPod, you see the first iPod and you see the first Samsung and you see the first all that, it's like, oh my God, that's 12, 13 years old. And I'm like, and you realize you're still got years left, and it's like, you don't realize how old, I mean, how much you were kept going back in time until you don't realize it from the 80s and 90s because you already know it's old. But when you're watching and you keep going forward and you realize, God, we got so many more years left. And there's so many this, and it's like, yeah, to me, live streaming, appointment television, that was always fun. But streaming to me kind of helped me grow up. It kind of did.
The thing I loved about streaming as opposed to broadcast is that now with streaming, you can pick the channels that you want and subscribe to them. Okay. Yeah. Not subscribe to. Well, cable came in too in the 80s and really changed network television because one, mature content was edited and dubbed poorly by, television studios, NBC, ABC, and CBS, which were the big three, and then Fox came on later. And then, of course, there was syndication, which meant that there were just reruns. That's all that was. Local channels. But they would edit and cut down things in such a way that it was poorly done. I mean, continuity sucked ass. Mm-hmm. And then you saw a film that had, language or certain scenes that had to be, and you saw it in its full entirety, in full context. Then you're like, leave it alone. But, the networks had their rules. Streaming, there's kid content, family, the rating system, general audiences, PG-13, PG-13, R,
X,
NC-17,
X,
which is what the NC-17 is,
yeah,
and not rated.
Yeah.
So all those different things.
Well, remember one of the things too. We can go all the way back to vaudeville. Vaudeville hated movies. Mm-hmm. Movies hated TV.
Yep.
TV hated VCRs. VCR hated DVD because it was a better clarity. Radio hated television. Let's go back even farther on that. Radio hated television. Yep. You're not going to listen. But here's the deal. In the end, nothing went really out of business unless it was a niche. It's like theaters are still around. Maybe vaudeville by itself, but that's still the advent of theater. Theater's still around. Broadway's
Now
still
we have
around.
stand-up comedy, which is comedy clubs, which is basically the vaudeville.
Yeah. Which I've been on stage like 25 times. I've done stand-up before, so I get that, you know. It's like, and it always makes me, I've done the 5-minute shots and I'm like, good God, at 3.5, I'm struggling. And it's like, it just makes you, and it makes you just, amazes you to see an hour. They'll go an hour and they're not even blinking. I'm like, I am struggling at 3.5, I'm struggling.
They rehearse that stuff. They write their skits.
Yeah.
They're rehearsed in it's not spur of the moment. They plan ahead and they plan those skits for weeks even.
Yeah.
Like those stand-up shows like you see in the, Sam Kinison and, what was that Andrew Dice Clay.
Yeah.
They have topics and they just basically jot it down. Margaret Cho, her show goes an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Okay. But they have the content, they have it already there. And they talk about it, probably even improv a little bit. But a lot of that stuff is like what we're doing right now. You have topics and you address them. And then they just throw the one-liners in and throw some humorous into it. And they probably even discuss it and go over it with their producers ahead of time.
Yeah.
Okay. Or someone else,
And one of the things,
otherwise you would sit there and you'd be, floundering after 3 minutes.
Absolutely. And it's like, but no, the biggest thing right now, I wanted to bring up theater because we're going to put our favorite topic last, because we're going to go into this one with theater right now. The thing is, one of the things that I wanted to bring up tonight is our favorite theater production with our preferred actor. Now I'm going to go first on this one because I've brought this up to you, but I wanted to bring this up to the audience. What we have, my favorite play, without a shadow of a doubt, it's either between Inherit the Wind and Death of a Salesman. And I'll bring up Inherit the Wind along with these types. But to me, Death of a Salesman, there's been quite a few types. There's been Lee J. Cobb. There's been Dustin Hoffman. There's been Frederick March. It goes all the way back. There's been Brian Dennehy. There's Wendell, geez. I'll get his last name in a second. He did it in England. Let's see. It'll come to me. But it's like he did his. But it's like, the one thing about me with a Willy Loman, to me, there's all kinds of different ones. I need my Willy Loman, my preferred one, to be a powerhouse. I've talked this up to you before. They need to have been the football star, probably Hoss Cartwright. Now, to me, Dan Blocker would have been an amazing. You know of Dan Blocker from Bonanza. Remember Hoss Cartwright?
I think so.
Yeah. He was 6'4", 300 pounds. He died at like 42 years old. He had a gallbladder problem in 1972. It basically ended Bonanza. And to me, if he would have gotten older, remember that he'd been into his 60s, it'd have been 1990s, early 90s. I think he would have been an amazing Willy Loman. Because to me, powerhouse, you probably were the football star. You become the number one star. You're probably the everything. Life beats you down and beats you down and beats you down and beats you down. And you were the star and you were the big powerhouse no one messes with. Now you've gotten older. Life's beating you down. Younger people are taking your spot. They're taking your place. You're like stuff like that. You're also getting older. Your memory is going. Your body's feeling like crap. I feel like a powerhouse with an image. Like Brian Dennehy was amazing in it. You remember how big he was. I feel like a big man, a big powerhouse-looking individual needs to play that role because I think it really makes it big when someone was powerhouse and life beating them down. It just makes it that much more. I don't believe Dustin Hoffman was worth anything because I don't believe he was ever a powerhouse. He's a little bitty guy.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So that's, to me, my type of Willy Loman. Is someone that has a powerhouse look that were once the man.
Okay, so you mentioned those. So Dan Blocker, you're ideal actor for that role would be Dan Blocker.
Dan Blocker, if he would have been alive through that, yes, absolutely. In the 90s.
Well,
oh
you
God.
know, when you mention that, and I think I'm going to mention mine, and he has been on Law and Order Special Victims Unit for 20-something years, and now he's on Law and Order Organized Crime, and that is Chris Maloney. I
Sure.
could totally see him in Death of a Salesman too. Look at him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's
Oh,
62
yeah, he's built.
years old now. He's 62 years old now,
Yeah.
or one maybe in that. And he's
Sure.
built like a brick shithouse. I mean,
Sure.
he is hard body.
Yeah.
But him is the Willie Loman who's been
Yep.
beaten down emotionally as
Yep.
well as physically.
Losing his memory. You know what
Yeah, I mean, him in that role, I think would be interesting as well
Yeah.
to see. But which brings me into mind, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? And
Yeah.
mentioning, bringing up Maloney and his former Special Victims Unit partner, Mariska Hargitay, who is still on Special Victims Unit. She's the main actor now on there, and she is Martha, and Maloney as George. Because one, Hargitay could do Martha with this cigarette.
Yeah.
She put the wig on. She's a very tall woman. She's about 5'8"-ish,
Yeah.
you know, probably even taller. I don't know, give it a take. And, you know, she can let herself go a little. I mean, she's a nice, trim and fit, you know, woman, but she's just she's large. But she can make herself go even more, you know, and put the, you know, a gray wig on or something and the cigarette. And when she comes in, it goes, what a dump. And oh God, I would pay through the nose to watch her do that role.
Sure.
And Maloney too was George. I mean, he's such a big burly guy, but George is so meek, his personality.
Mm-hmm.
But he's always got that one up. He's smart. You know, he's clever, and he comes up and he sees things. He picks things up. You know, he lets Martha just runs him into the ground, but he's just always doing this at her.
Yep.
And to see him not play such the tough guy, but more of an intellectually strong
absolutely.
person. You know, and maybe even put glasses on. You know, just do something different. You know, his appearance would be awesome. And I think that would be sellout shows. I think, you know, Broadway even, or off Broadway, those would be sellout shows.
Yeah.
Having him as George and Martha.
And let's pick one more play each. I had another idea. I'm just going to go based off of what the deal was. Inherit the Wind. Now, as myself, if I was to get myself more into the play world, into the stage, I would love to be. I would not want to be Brady. I'd want to be Drummond.
Uh-huh.
And like I said, the reason is the ending. Is the reason I'd want to be Drummond. He is the agnostic, but you see him at the end putting the Bible on top. And after his buddy dies, you don't know if he's gonna go home and read that or if that's it in memory. You know, but see, Spencer Tracy and Jack Lemmon played him so differently. Played Drummond so differently. I mean, Spencer Tracy came on in with blew on into town. It's like he was the powerhouse of the world. Jack Lemmon's Drummond came in and he was, you know, very kindly, you know, like Jack Lemmon could be, you know, and everything. But the end,
he's congenial.
Yeah. At the end of it, though, I showed you that thing. At the end, Spencer Tracy plays the role kind of half annoyed at Hornbeck, half annoyed, half everything. He's just tired and worn out. He's half annoyed. Just like, do you want? He's trying to get him. Why? But Jack Lemmon wants to kill him. This is the congenial's out. It's like he wants to kill him, and he's not. He doesn't yell. But I'm saying that's the whole point of what I was bringing up. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And those were the types that I like to bring. And it's like, I think a great Drummond, a great Drummond of this day and age, really. Because it is tough to get those levels of, you know what I'm saying? to get those levels of actor now.
Well, you know, speaking of Law and Order, Sam Waterston. In
That would
fact,
be
the
that would
premiere
be a great Drummond.
the premiere of Organized Crime,
Yeah.
which tonight, actually, is Organized Crime and then Special Victims Unit, and they'll be ready on streaming by tomorrow, and that's what I'm going to be watching.
Of course.
But it's a crossover with the 3 shows: the regular Law and Order with Sam Waterston. I think his character is in part of it. Then Maloney's character in Organized Crime, and then Hargaday's character in Special Victims Unit. It's a 3-week crossover, first time ever for all these shows.
I know you'll get into that, no question.
Oh, yes, indeed, I will.
I got Alan Alda as Drummond.
Possibly a different kind, but yeah.
He'd be an intellectual Drummond. He'd be the intellectual Drummond. It's like you could see him like Hawkeye. You could see Alan Alda like Hawkeye. He'd have a snarmy, smart ass comeback to everything.
That would be an interesting interpretation. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you could see that part. And what's another play of yours that I know the type of one that you like?
Oh God, honey, there's so many, and yeah, Virginia Woolf is one of my top. See, I love Shakespeare. You know, I can see Shakespeare, but there's so many You know, these cast of thousands. My ideal kind of plays involve just a small group of people, a small number, and Waiting for Godot. It's just the 2 actors and then a couple of supporting that kind of come in and out. I don't even think I have ideal actors for Waiting for Godot.
You know who would have been. You know who would have been a wonderful. I'm bringing up MASH again. You know who'd been a wonderful in Estragon. As if we're going to go to Mayo, Gary Berghoff.
Oh God, Radar.
Yeah, he'd been wonderful in it because he is. You can remember how he'd be like Hawkeye, wake up.
Well, he was mousy. He was that little. They used to call him squirrely. Yeah. And you know, the little bustling, you know, the 4 eyes and bustling around the office. I mean, he knew where everything was.
Yeah.
He knew where it was, he knew what people were going to ask before they even, did, and then he always heard the choppers coming, he had that.
Well, that was Radar. Yeah.
But Berghoff would be good. I don't think he acts anymore, but he would be good. But you know who I would like to see? An interesting combination is the reunion of Edward Norton and Brad Pitt, who were in Fight Club.
That would be interesting.
Norton is Estragon, and Pitt as Vladimir.
Yeah, I think that would work.
And they would basically reprise their roles is the Fight Club instead of it's Waiting for Godot.
Yeah,
they would both add a very modern twist to the roles. And I think people don't give Brad Pitt credit. I think he's a better actor than he's given credit for.
Well, he's not a pretty guy anymore. That's the big thing.
He's pretty. Even when he was good looking, he had his Interview with a Vampire was actually very damn good.
Well, he's good
one
looking
of his earliest films. I mean, he played the Louis, and you could see the torture, the pain inside of him. And that was where the character was when he lost Claudia and when he became a vampire, and he didn't want to be this killer. He didn't want to feed off blood.
Yeah.
And Tom Cruise was such a, get to enjoy it, this sort of, and he, and Pitt really was, but Pitt, people don't give him credit for being actually a halfway decent actor. He got so caught up in Brad Pitt, the image, and he's a sculptor now, which he's got an exhibit over in Finland, I believe, somewhere over there. And I'm happy to see that.
See, the thing was, the prettiness is what caught that. You know what I'm saying? The prettiness brought the idea. Was the people always look at the image, they can't act, they're just pretty. But it's like, the thing is when they start to get there, you know what I mean? When they start to grow up and they get a little bit grizzled and they get, life gets them and everything like that, and they get 35 or whatever, and they get handsome, not just a pretty boy anymore. Right. Then people pay attention and he could always act. That's what happens.
And it's just give him half a chance, for the love of Pete. I mean, And of course, that's not what audiences want to see, or what managers and all these, people in charge of your career type thing. And, people have more freedom now to pick something that may be off the beaten path. Johnny Depp, bless him, for all of his oddities. All right.
Yeah.
He was a pretty boy as a young man. He was in Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
Handsome kid who got killed in the movie. And then he did a couple of Hollywood beach type movies, just for the money. And then he was cast in 21 Jump Street. He was the handsome kid, young man. They were playing high school kids, they were cops in high school. And all of that little baby face. I mean, he had that thick black hair and those big brown eyes. But 21 Jump Street, there were some episodes that really, when I started watching it way back, I thought, this guy is more than just a pretty face.
Yeah.
There's some shit going on in here.
Yep. Oh,
Okay?
yeah. And
then he sedged away into movies, and he did some real offbeat stuff. He jumped into character roles fast.
who do you think
Huh?
Who do you think played the best president ever?
Played the best president?
Yeah. And actors that played the best president. We already know Martin Sheen, obviously.
Daniel Day-Lewis's Lincoln.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like Bill Paxton in Independence Day. No, that was
you
Bill
mean
Paxton.
like a fake president?
Yeah, no, I'm just saying playing the role.
Oh,
Yeah,
Martin Sheen.
Martin Sheen,
Martin
no question.
Sheen. West
Harrison
Wing.
Ford. Yeah, no
Martin
question.
Sheen, West Wing.
Well, see, and the thing is, Martin Sheen, the thing about it is the fact that it was obviously, the one thing that made that a show was the fact that there would be nobody to this day that will allow a 5'8" actor, or not actor, but 5'8" president. Every president from the get-go has been 6'2" to 6'4". And it's like, he's 5'8". That's what made it such a difference, is they were trying to make him FDR.
He was smart, clever, witty, loved his wife, cared about his job. He didn't take any bullshit. He was a Democrat. He was a Democrat and he was smart.
Yeah.
But he wasn't woke. Okay.
Right.
He wasn't woke.
Right.
All right. Not like we hear, we today. All right.
Yeah.
He wasn't. He was a very down to earth economics major.
Yeah.
How many Democrats are that?
Yeah.
Or who would admit to being that?
Right, and it's like, well, it was basically an economics major who had he had a respect for capitalism, wanted to make his own version of capitalism, and he wanted to get his own, and of course you only have 8 years and it's not near enough.
I know, it really isn't.
And anyway, now that we're going to take it to our final deal, and this is going to be a little different, our final topic. I thought about this, and I wanted to get yours, and you're going to do most of the talking on this one. I have mine. I'll bring mine toward the thing, but this is your stage on this one. You wake up one morning, whether it's a dream or it's real, you're the president of the United States. You are it. You're everything. You're able to flip your switch on and do the job and good everything like that, knowing what you know about politics and how it works now. What's everything you would do? What you want to do?
Oh,
I would ask you different questions.
I have seen enough of West Wing to know it's not as simple as just what I would do.
What to do. But that's a Cliff Notes version. We know that there's more to it than what the hour will give. But I'm going to ask you questions.
I would do something about runaway capitalism. Because inflation and the cost of living is just, it's ridiculous. Okay. It's ridiculous. When most households don't make $40,000 a year and you can't even get a 1-bedroom apartment on that income, there's something wrong. Okay. There's something wrong. So that means I don't know. I would look into every option is to somehow get it under control. I think corporate welfare has got to go. If you can't survive on your profits, then you're not spending right. They're doing something wrong. Okay.
Are you talking about like what happened with Patagonia? You mean how they did theirs?
I'm talking about Freddie Mae and Fannie Mac and Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. whatever, whoever the hell they are. And this was years back, but that shit should not have happened. Okay, no corporate bailouts for irresponsibility when the owners and the managers, the CEOs have $4,000 curtain rods and trash.
That's
cans.
more of the wife than the CEOs, I think.
I don't care who it is.
Yeah.
I don't care who it is. Whoever spent the money.
Yeah.
Okay, that shit's got to go.
Now, what do you think of? You've read the thing. What do you think of what happened with Patagonia and CEO?
Well, I don't know how he got there. I don't know enough about him. I think that taking his money, his profits, and putting them into charitable organizations is a very worthwhile and noble thing.
Well,
and I think.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I think it's a very noble thing. He's taking his excess, his wealth. What does he need with it all? Okay, unless he's got 5,000 kids. All right, what does he personally need with it all? You could take that and establish an institution. You could, invest in the needy areas of need. All right, which I think you and I have talked about that, which I think is very noble. It doesn't necessarily, it shouldn't be required. Okay, no, I don't believe in that. Okay, but I think he did a very good thing.
Well, for people that didn't know, Patagonia, he's selling off most of his business. He's selling off. You can take a look in Google, but he's selling off most of his business. Goes into a certain trust, and it's going to, instead of going to a family or selling off to anything, it's going, every bit of the profits are going to environmental studies. They're going to environmental groups, and see, he did what he did because you know something, he owns it.
Yeah,
he owns it. It's like, this is the thing I always tell people. People have different views, personalities, all that stuff. They have every ounce of those. You understand what I mean? They kept their, but when you own it, you make the choice to do what you want to do with your money. Same with a Warren Buffett. Same with any of those.
I earn my paycheck, and once my bills are paid, what I do with the rest of that money is my business.
Absolutely.
But I earn it. We're not talking about corporate CEOs that embezzle business funds for their personal use.
Well, and see, that's not every, that is, here's the thing. The media brings that. The media brings it out. It's not anywhere near the amount of people. It's so few. There are so many businesses that are out there doing good, but we don't get that media. We don't get it. And it's kind of stinks to be able to get that because you're not, remember, but if it bleeds, it leads. That's the media. I call it hit and run media. We must, and it's like, to me, I myself want to be a billionaire, so I'm not going to go off of capitalism. But you brought, what I used to call it? You brought it runaway capitalism. I have an idea. I called it the GM economy, and now the Las Vegas economy, and I'll explain. The GM economy was when you had all the, this is my explanation. There's going to be people with more, you know what I'm saying? They know what to say. It is, they had all the plants around, all the houses there. People were the neighbors. It was a couple miles off. You started probably 18 to 21 years old. You got a couple, 3 kids. You got your houses. You got everything. You paid it all off. Paid your cars off. Got all that kind of stuff. Boom, 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 boom. In a way, that's how the economy rolled. Then people got to go out on weekends. They got to have all that stuff. Remember, they go to McDonald's. It was 17 cents for the burger or whatever. You know what I mean?
Oh,
you got that. Now it is what I call the Las Vegas economy.
God.
It is a Las Vegas economy. It really is. And it's like everything, when the economy goes well, it really goes well. It was the first 3 years of Trump. It really was. There were jobs booming. But then when you get a COVID,
yeah.
And that's just honest. That's not Republican Democrat. That's just honesty. It's
sure.
Like, and guess what? Even if it's anybody else, if it's DeSantis next, if it's another thing next, if it's the next president or whatever, this will no longer, this Las Vegas economy is going forever. It has to maintain. The only person left that would have probably stopped it, you know what I'm saying? The only person left that would have probably stopped it would have probably been Sanders. And he's old now.
Yeah.
And it's like, he would have been the last one that would have an understanding. The younger ones are not going to be able to stop the deal. So it's going to be the same economy, but it's got to be up to a people now. You know what I'm saying?
Well, and I think, eventually, we're going to see a housing bust. Okay, we're going to see a housing bust. It's coming. But again, back to issues of the presidency.
Mm-hmm.
I would rewrite the National Endowment for the Arts. Okay, I think that what Clinton did back in the 90s, just to
explain to people what he did. Explain to people what he did.
All right. National Endowment for the Arts is funding. It is federal funding for arts programs. When they mean federal, that means there's so much allotted that goes to the different states for different art programs. And some of them are institutional, like schools and public artworks, things, public parks, they're landscaping things, or music, a symphony orchestra, galleries and museums. That's for the public use. But at one time, there were NEA grants that were awarded to individual artists whose work was looked at, judged. They had to apply and qualify for certain, types of grants, just like any other type of grant. Well, a lot of what was happening is that certain kinds of artists whose subject matter were frowned upon.
Questionable, quote unquote.
Frowned upon by certain conservative congressmen. And it brought the attention to the NEA, especially in the late 80s, which, all that time, there was an emerging artistic group of people who came up in the 60s and 70s who were definitely a little bit more free thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Who had good quality work, but their subjects were like, okay, what do labeled pornographic in some instances. And because of that pressure from the right, and that could be researched easily enough.
Sure.
William Jefferson Clinton revamped the National Endowment for the Arts and removed grant programs for individuals. And it's just for like organizations now, like 501Cs, theaters, art galleries, the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra or symphony orchestras, music programs. But I think it serves so much more than just let's, buy tickets. Okay. Arts programs can benefit people with mental health issues. Arts programs can benefit disadvantaged people in, very poor communities, kids who don't have fancy schmancy phones, schools that desperately need art supplies and materials that are not only safe to use, but teachers qualified to teach them how to use them. Veterans with PTSD, mental health issues, troubles, re-entering society, art therapy or music therapy or some kind of creative therapy, whatever it is only beneficial. I mean, you can't force these things by all means, but it needs to be there. And I don't think that if you're a veteran who served this country and you're having mental health issues, struggling with whatever, physical or otherwise, issues, should have to apply for a grant for art therapy. They shouldn't have to apply for a grant. It ought to be there, available. So there's a lot of things I would look into. Those are two of the top right there. Of course, we want to get into civil rights, women's health issues. That's a topic for another time because we're running out of time.
Well, one of the things I'm going to bring up to
that fucking Supreme Court decision, I would do everything I could do to just go around that. That would be top. That would be
the main thing you got to do now is there is no more Roe v. Wade. If you were going to do it yourself, you have to create a new case. But I'm going to bring this up to everybody. People did not know this part from me. Just being honest. I put it on Facebook, I put it on Twitter, and I put it on the thing. People were asking me, what did I think of Roe v. Wade? I do not answer.
Okay.
I don't answer. And the reason being is because if, for one thing, I'm not a woman. I'm just being truthful. I'm not a woman.
That's obvious.
Yeah. I'm not a woman. And I have a belief, truthfully, that I don't need to be butting into women's issues. Now, I would love for this to lay into everybody. I want people to have this belief here. I want people to understand that I would hope that this mindset allows this change in politics one day over the years. I don't know how long it's going to take. It can take forever. It can take forever. But how about back off and let the women talk? That's where I'm at. So you're never going to hear a pro-life or pro-choice thing from me. I don't want to get into women's issues. I don't want to, and it's just what I am.
What really, really stuck in my craw about all that is that there were women who supported that decision.
Oh yeah, there's pro-life. A lot of them are.
But pro-life does not. They don't know. They don't know. Okay, they've either been willfully ignorant, or horribly sheltered, or brainwashed by these fundamentalist, religiosity, and that's what it is, honey. Take religion out of it, and it wouldn't be an issue. Okay, I'm telling you this. Take religion out of it, and it wouldn't be an issue. But they've been drummed into them for the last 35 years. Okay, at least 25. That abortion is murder. It stops a beating heart. Well, you know what else stops a beating heart? Murder. These idiots who march into schools with guns, take out 10 and 15 school kids at once. Okay, that's murder. They're not screaming about that. All right. So this is something I will just firmly dig my heels in about this until the day I drop dead, whenever that's going to be. So
another 56 years. No.
Yeah, we'll see.
Well, either way. Well, I wanted to give you a big thing for this. You know what I'm saying, that people could see in the future. We know we're going to start out with small audience, but I want the future to see where your thing is at and understand where mine. I wanted to give you that tonight.
Well,
no problem.
I do appreciate it.
No
Thank
problem.
you.
And this has been Yin and Yang, and this is what Yin and Yang, and we are the reason we are Yin and Yang because we have different views. But there's also it's the idea of conversation. It's also the idea of conversation, getting the whole thing. We have a lot in common, but we have a lot of differences.
Sure.
But we have a lot of differences, and I wanted to see whether it's my sports, or whether it's from Pundit's Pundit or it's Yin and Yang. I'm trying to get this world to understand the idea of conversation. To get the idea. It's like maybe it can lead to the politics. Maybe you can get it again because there's way too much bloodshed, whether it's verbal or otherwise. And it's time to bring this. And it's going to take a long time. But you got to bang into somebody's head. Let's start talking. Yeah. And start talking. And it's like, and I'll bring things up, and there'll be differences, and there'll be everything. We have lots of different episodes for you and I to be able to get a debate going. It's like tonight was your thing, but it's like we'll get to that thing, and I want people to understand. I want you to have as much stage as you can be able to get, because there's going to be a ton of people that believe in you, agree with you. There's going to be a ton of them. And
let's just hope they're going to get out and vote.
Yeah, well, and I hope my end votes on the thing, but at the same time, you're going to be more on the left wing side for every issue than I'm going to be a right wing for the side. That's just what I am. I have a lot of independent in me too. But anyway, this has been a great show. We gone even longer this time. We went hour 7 last. So I appreciate everybody watching. I appreciate you, TJ. And we're going to continue with this show every single Thursday. And we also got a movie going on. We'll keep up to date on what's going on. Absolutely. For everybody here, Jacob Christner, the TJ Sanson, the Yin and Yang, you have a great night.
Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.